Senator Inhofe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was listened with interest as Senator Sanders introduced his Secretary of Transportation as being one of the newest Secretaries of Transportation in America. Well, I'm honored to introduce the most experienced and tenured Secretary of Transportation in the United States of America, and I want my colleagues to listen to this because I was first elected to the state legislature in 1965. That was the same year that Gary Ridley came with the Department of Transportation in the state of Oklahoma. So we've got a lot of experience there, and over the years, to this same day, today, I don't know whether Gary Ridley's a Democrat or Republican. He's been the very best. He was a director for a long time, then later made Secretary of Transportation. But I remember when a good friend of mine, Brad Henry, but a Democrat, was elected governor, I called him up and I said, I only have one request, and that is that you keep Gary Ridley running the transportation system. He said I was going to do it anyway. But anyway, Gary's just done a great job. I remember in '02, a lot of the members on this committee may not know that we in Oklahoma are navigable, that we have a navigation way that comes all the way to the city of Tulsa, or Catoosa, right outside of Tulsa. In 2002, in May 26th, I think it was, a barge coming up there ran into the Webbers Falls Bridge going across the interstate. It took out 580 feet. Our estimates were that it was going to take 2 years to get that fixed, to get things going again. We sat down with Gary Ridley. He ended up doing it in exactly 2 months. So I would just say that he does things that other people talk about doing, and he gets them done. And he has a lot of concerns. He and I talk on probably a weekly basis about the disaster that we have throughout the nation, our need to have a transportation reauthorization bill. And there are a lot of things that we can all talk about. Some we'll agree with, some we won't agree with. But I'm just very delighted to introduce the guy that I think is the most experienced Secretary of Transportation in the United States of America, Gary Ridley.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe. Mr. Chairman, we want to thank you, along with the Senator Inhofe and the other members of your committee, for your leadership and efforts to increase the efficiency of delivering transportation projects in a new reauthorization. As we consider the deficiencies of our national transportation system in the next highway bill, we recognize it will be extremely difficult for Congress to increase the federal transportation funding or even sustain the current funding levels. Therefore, more transportation dollars must be directed to our core infrastructures without set-asides or diversions. In addition, we must work together to deliver projects more efficiently and free from unnecessary bureaucracy and regulations. Programs that mandate the commitment of dedicated transportation funding to recreational and fringe activities such as trails, landscaping, lighting, building renovations should be vigorously reviewed. The logic is questionable when the core transportation infrastructure of the country is in such deplorable condition due to lack of investment. The American with Disabilities Act is an unfunded mandate for states and local governments. Everyone should recognize that we must do more to accommodate individuals that are physically challenged. The ADA requires thoughtful and reasonable compliance. It does not mandate the wholesale abandonment of common sense. There must be room to focus on the greatest needs and the highest accessibility returns while allowing for sound engineering judgment in the regular maintenance of our highways. Surely it is reasonable to expect that DOTs can execute state of good repair highway projects within existing right-of-way without the added expense and delay of federal involvement or regulations. Therefore, when transportation system improvements are being implemented within existing right-of-way, a full NEPA and federal oversight exemption should be granted, or other non-transportation related federal regulations should be minimized or eliminated. The benefits of this action cannot be ignored. Transportation agencies will be encouraged to work within existing transportation facility footprints and minimize impacts to private property and the environment. Also, the state and federal regulatory resources and lead agencies can focus more of their attention on quickly delivering critical, larger-scale projects. The air quality of the U.S. has improved to the point that meaningful air quality targets that once seemed unachievable is now commonplace. Our concern is that EPA continues to advance an agenda that ratchets down the targets outside their own guidelines, seemingly with the intent of widespread non-attainment. The EPA should consider the improvements made and acknowledge the benefits that will undoubtedly be realized from the clean energy initiatives of business, government, and the public. Air quality targets and guidelines must be established that reflect the input of state governments and the private sector, that do not restrict the economic growth and the competitiveness of our country. Now is the time to acknowledge the achievements of the past 20 years rather than implement a new set of unachievable targets. The EPA is also obligated to establish and enforce water quality measures and guidelines. However, we are concerned with the far-reaching impact of the indiscriminate stormwater regulations will have on transportation systems. Rules and regulations are being advanced that require states to manage, monitor, and potentially treat rainwater that falls in or on and runs through our transportation right-of-way. In naming these improvements in the quality, in improving the receiving waters. However, the quality of the receiving water is impacted to a far greater extent by the runoff from other non-transportation related lands that sometimes even discharge into the highway rights-of-way. The footprint of the linear transportation system represents a microscopic portion of the total land area that can be affected by water quality. Yet the cost of regulatory compliance is disproportionate to the true benefit of the water quality is in question. States have made great strides in improving air and water quality as they preserve our environmental resources. We know that we can perform at a very high level in a less bureaucratic and heavily regulated setting. In the case of federal environmental and regulatory issues, we certainly understand that not all or will can be eliminated. However, we must strike a new balance that quickly delivers transportation improvements to enhance the function of our system, the safety of the public, and the economic vitality and the longevity of our country. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your kind invitation and the opportunity to offer our perspective on several reauthorization issues. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions the committee may have.